Hello, everyone. My name is Grant Waldy. Welcome to everyone here that's in the room today, and then for those of you that have called in, today I'm going to be giving a presentation on my recent trip to Africa, where I attempted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I also went on a safari afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to either jump in or maybe save them to the end, or for those of you that are on the call, you can always just kind of email me, and then I can just kind of read through them at the end of the call. So I guess I'll just go back here. I decided to go with this company, RMI Expeditions, Rainier Mountaineering Incorporated. I climbed Mount Rainier with them back in May. Top-notch company. I can't say enough good things about them, and I decided to stay with them for Mount Kilimanjaro. So this is the planning of it, the packing. I'm not going to go into details about every single piece here. I did that basically on my Mount Rainier WebEx. But basically, there's a lot of stuff you need to buy. RMI does a really good job of sending out a gear list, and they tell you pretty much exactly what type of boot, exactly what type of gloves. So if you want more details, just send me an email. I can send you that gear list. They really do a good job going into perfect detail about what you need to get. So Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania, down here in Southeast Africa. The way to get there is that RMI wants everyone to fly directly from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The reason why, they've just had too many problems with people commuting through Egypt or through Angola or various different other places. Sure, you can find a cheaper flight, but if your bags don't show up, that becomes a much more expensive flight, and you can't even buy the proper gear. So pretty much everyone, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, we all flew to Amsterdam first, and then we flew down one direct nonstop flight to Tanzania. So I'll zoom in on Tanzania. The capital city is Dodoma. You might have heard of Dar es Salaam. That's kind of a big city. They have big skyscrapers. That's a big modern city. Kenya's just north of it. Where's Kilimanjaro? It's right up here in the northern region. I highlighted that in red. The closest large city is Arusha. So when you fly into Kilimanjaro Airport, and it's about an hour drive into Arusha. The airport in Kilimanjaro was so tiny it doesn't even show up in this map. So I literally in Microsoft Paint kind of annotated this is where the airport is. So you drive into Arusha, you spend a day or two kind of acclimatizing, getting over jet lag, maybe buying that last piece of gear, and then you head out to the mountain. You drive through Moshi, and Moshi, they have a big sign. They say Moshi is the cleanest city in all of Africa. So they basically, they make it very much against the law and a pretty steep fine to do any sort of littering. So you don't see any garbage when you're in Moshi. Moshi is very clean. And you drive through Moshi, and you get to the Machame entrance, which is basically the same elevation as Denver. So it's about a mile high at the park entrance. I think there's about 7 other ways up the mountain. There's various different gates, but by far the most popular one is this Machame entrance. So going back to the flight, this is a Boeing 777. It flies directly from Amsterdam. When it lands at Kilimanjaro Airport, there's not really much of an airport there. It's just kind of a landing strip to land on. They don't have the sky bridges. You just get out and you come down these escalators. So that for me was a little bit weird because I've done this on small planes, but I've never done this on a big giant plane, actually being able to walk right underneath the wing. So here's the route that we took. Basically, the way up is one way, and the way down is a different way, so you're not actually having to pass people going up and down. They do that on purpose. So we start driving along, and Kilimanjaro is a lot different from mountains, say, in the Rocky Mountains, where there's a number of peaks all beside each other. Kilimanjaro isn't like that. It's completely flat out on the Serengeti, and then just boom, there's this mountain, and it peaks right out of the sky. And you can see it's quite ominous as we drive up to it. It's this huge mountain. So this is the approach coming up here. You know, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward to climb up this. You know, it's not actual rock climbing. You usually call this about, you know, level 3. So it's basically it's hiking uphill. There's some places where it's a little bit more of a scramble, but for the most part, it's pretty easy hiking. There's just a lot of it. It's about 5 hours a day, every day, and it's roughly about 6 days to get up and 2 days to get down. So it's not technically challenging, but it is exhausting to do that day after day. So here's a video here. Hopefully this loads up. Yeah, so you can see you're basically just kind of walking through a forest. It looks pretty similar to the Pacific Northwest. There's lots of moss on the trees and there's lots of plants. Here's another shot walking through the jungle. Really, the only difference between this and you know my hometown is that occasionally you would see monkeys just run across the pathway. But honestly, the foliage is very, very similar to kind of the Seattle and Vancouver area. On this part of the trail, I remarked to our guide. There's our guide there. His name's Casey Grom. I said this is really similar to climbing Mount Finlayson back where I'm from. You know, it's a recipe for twisting your ankles for sure. You gotta be kind of careful when you're walking, but it's a pretty straightforward hike on day one. Various different plants we get to see. This is called the Kilimanjaro plant because it's a J, so the Kilimanjaro plant. Some large ferns that they have. So after about 5 hours of hiking, we make it to our first camp. And you can see we have our tents here, and then there's other tents here. There's various different groups that are going up. About 100 people a day, on average, go up, or at least attempt to make their way up Kilimanjaro. And there might be about 10 people or 20 people in a group. So there might be 10 groups, 5 groups. It didn't feel crowded, but it also didn't feel empty. So these were our sleeping tents, 2 people to a tent, and then this was our dining tent. So our dining tent, it had a skylight. You could stand up in it. They had like foldable chairs and tables in there, so it felt somewhat luxurious. Compare that with this other group. So they have much cheaper tents. The tents don't have any windows or vents, so it's a lot darker in them. These are their dining tents, and you know you might not think it's much, but if you have a nice bright tent, it affects your psyche, and you just feel better than being in one of these dark tents. So I'm happy that I sprung for the slightly more expensive guides who went with the nicer tents. These tents are the exact same tents that they use on Denali and Mount Everest. So they're good, high quality tents. They have this vestibule in the front where you can put your boots or your backpack, and there's another vestibule in the back where you can maybe put some other things. Picture of me sitting inside the tent. See how nice and bright it is. This is my tent mate. He was from Memphis, and he had all the best gear. So we were just kind of comparing gear all day, every day. And he was saying, "Oh, look at my boots, and look at my socks." And so it was good to learn from him a lot of the different types of gear that they have. This is a toilet. If you pay the cheaper amount, you go with the cheaper guides, you don't get one, and you have to use the bush. Well, using the bush once is okay. Using the bush for 8 straight days, it starts to kind of get on your nerves, and especially if it's really cold out or if it's really windy, it's really, really nice to have an actual toilet. We had 2. We had a men's toilet and a women's toilet, and this is basically what it looks like. You open up the lid, you pump this to get a little bit of water in the bowl, and when you're done, you pull out a trap door right here, and everything goes inside, and then you push the trap door shut. So it looks exactly like a regular toilet, and it functions almost the identical way. And then at the end of the day, one of the crew members there, he empties it out, and you go on your way. So very, very nice, very, very nice that we had this. This is the end of day 1 at the first camp. And of the 6 people that started, one of the people in our group was starting to get sick and spent a lot of time in here, and she was very thankful that we actually had a nice toilet. Unfortunately, she couldn't continue on the next day, so the group of 5 of us carried on. So just a little recap, we started at a mile, 5,280 feet, and that distance there is about, I think it was about almost 7 miles of kind of as the crow flies distance, and we made it up to 9,700. So it's about 5,000 feet of vertical elevation change that you do in a day. And then if you want to think in metric, it's about a 10K run as far as the distance that you cover. So on the second day, we make it out of camp, and we come up here, and we make it out of the forest. We're able to see back down into the valley. So this is our group here. This is one of our guides, and then these are the porters. There's various different porters, and they carry a bunch of loads on their head. They carry up the food. They carry up the water. They carry up various different things. Here we are continuing to climb. So now it's getting a little bit more difficult. You know, this still isn't rock climbing, but certainly you have to watch your step, and we're using our ski poles. We're occasionally putting our hands down, you know, just to make sure we're climbing over things properly and not falling. Some more interesting flowers that we get to see. The trail is really clearly defined. It's impossible to get lost. It's very well marked in. One thing I liked is when we got up to a higher elevation like this, you can see all the way to the horizon, and you don't see any development whatsoever. You're just totally isolated in the middle of nature. So here I am. We've made it to the next camp. I'm pointing to where the summit is. This is pretty much where I hiked in every day. I hiked in Nike Free Run, Nike running shoes, just a light pair of pants, and then I would basically have 3 layers. So this is a long sleeve T-shirt, then a fleece, and then a parka. And at the beginning of the day, I'd just be standing around camp in this. As soon as we started hiking, I would take off this parka, and then within a few more minutes, I would take off the red fleece, and I was basically just in a long sleeve T-shirt because the temperatures, the coldest they got at nighttime was right around freezing, and throughout the day, they could be about 60, maybe even 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was fairly nice and warm throughout the day for hiking. So that second day, we went 9,700 feet to 11,500 feet. So now we get above the tree line, and now we're walking along the plateau. So if you go back to this map, you see we went up, and then we go sideways, sideways, sideways. So basically, if you go up, 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 and all the way to the summit, you are very likely to get altitude sickness. So we make it up to here, and then we're traversing across the mountain. So that's what this photo shows. We're no longer going up the mountain. We're pretty much just walking slightly uphill, and this is a way of getting our bodies kind of used to the altitude, because once you're above 10,000 feet, which we are, we're between 11,000 and 12,000, you can really start to feel the effects of altitude. So this is one way of slowly acclimatizing yourself. So we're seeing the peak, but again, we're not walking towards it. We're walking from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen. We're just kind of walking around the peak. We come to this wall is called the Lava Tower Wall, and this is known as being a mecca for rock climbing. So people will climb up to here, and then they won't go to the summit. They'll actually just climb this wall, because it's a very technical wall, and there's a whole bunch of different routes that you can take up it. We didn't actually see anyone rock climbing when we were there. We might have been kind of in the wrong season. But this is a very popular wall for people to do rock climbing on. So then we make it to our next camp, and we got our first nice good shot of the summit. And you can see some of the various different tents set up here. And our guide says, well, tomorrow we're basically going straight up this. And I mean, from this angle, it looks like that's going to be actual rock climbing. But when you get closer to it, the angle isn't quite as steep, and you basically just do this kind of back and forth, zigzagging up through this. And there is a route in the rock that isn't climbing straight up through this. This is us doing just a final little bit more of hiking. You can see these crazy, I don't know what to call these, trees or ferns, some sort of plant. They start with like a tree trunk, and then they turn into something larger, and then they have all these plants on top. I felt like I was in like the movie Avatar or something. This is quite a crazy area to be hiking through. There some of the plants are from the top. Yeah, so there's this same shot, but just in video form. And you can see I kind of pan up. And it looks that big in person, too. I mean, holy cow, how on earth are we going to climb this? But we still have a couple more days to go to make it up this. So this is called the Barranco Wall, and we're about to climb that the next morning. So just to recap, we went from Shira Hut to Barranco. So we wake up the next morning. So that's what that same wall looks like when you're up close. So you can see basically, you know, it's not rock climbing, but you're definitely having to put your hand down and make some holds. And our guide here, you know, he's going to stand a little bit below you, because obviously if you slip and you start to tumble down here, you could get pretty seriously hurt. And, you know, do you go up this way, because then you're walking on moss? So he's basically telling you exactly the way to go up so that you're going to have your best chance of success and not doing any slipping. Luckily, no one in our group slipped. Everyone made it up nice and safe. You can imagine climbing this when it's raining out, or when it's icy, or when it's snowy. That would be a whole another level of difficulty. But we didn't have any of those problems to deal with. We were perfect weather. I mean, it was nice and sunny, no wind. It was really, really easy to climb. Well, I shouldn't say easy to climb, but it was the best possible situation to climb in. So I make it up in the next camp. We're starting to get into the clouds. We don't really have much of a view anymore. More plants. So to recap that day, we didn't go very far. We went from Barranco to Karanga. That was quite a short day. As far as elevation change, we only went from 12,950 to 13,200. So we didn't go up very much, but it was basically that steep Barranco wall and then traversing over. The next morning, we're now going to try to make it to Barafu camp. So this was a day where we started to feel like, okay, this is actually doable, because you could see people and you could visualize yourself. It doesn't look like such a far off goal anymore. You're starting to get closer to the summit at this point. Summit's right there. I mean, that's still hours and hours away, but you almost start to feel like you can touch it. More weird plants. So this was one of the members of our group. It was a couple, Olga and Igor. They were originally from Russia. They live in Seattle now. They both work for Boeing, and she was celebrating her 66th birthday on the mountain. So the guides, the porters, what they did is they baked a birthday cake. They baked it down in Arusha. They packed up the baked cake, and then they packed up the icing, and then they iced it in the cooking tent, and then they brought in a fully iced cake, and then they all sung "Happy Birthday" in Swahili as they were dancing around and clapping. And she was basically in tears, because it was just it was awesome. You know, here we are the night before we're going to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, and someone's brought in a birthday cake for you. So just to recap, we went from Karanga to Barafu, get to Barafu, have the cake, we have dinner, we go to sleep at about 6 p.m. At least we try to go to sleep. I think I might have got 2 hours of sleep. I feel like I did get around 2 hours of sleep. Some people got no sleep. You go to sleep at 6, you wake up at 11 p.m. So you only get a few hours of sleep, and you start hiking basically at midnight. And the reason for this is that you want to make it to the summit for sunrise. It's just really cool to be on the summit of Kilimanjaro and see the sun coming up over all of Africa. So the next picture here, you know, if I would have taken pictures, there would have been a lot of pictures that basically looked like this, because it was just us hiking in total darkness. With maybe a long exposure camera, they would come out a little bit better. So I can really, the only thing I can do is I can describe to you, as we looked up the mountain, you could see this zigzag row of headlamps. And as you turned around, you could see the same thing with all these people that are all going up at the same time. That's all you can see. You just see this white zigzag that you're slowly following. And you have no depth perception. You can't, basically all you can see is just the guy's ankles that are in front of you. And every time he does a step, you do a step right behind him. So from about midnight to 5 a.m., it was a lot of just left foot, right foot in basic total darkness. So you start to get close to the summit. The sun starts to break. You're getting even closer. I believe this point right here is what's called Stella Point. So Kilimanjaro is a volcano, and it's a stereotypical, like, comical volcano where it goes up, it's got the ring, and then there's the big kind of plateau dish area in the middle. So when you hike up it and you get to what you think is the summit, when you get to the edge of that rim, which is called Stella Point, which is right here, you think you've reached the summit, but you haven't, because the actual highest point is on the other side of the crater. So you don't walk down into the crater, but you walk around the rim. So Stella Point, you're still, depending on how fast you're walking, you might be another hour or maybe 2 hours, depending on how fast you're walking, or you could run it in 20 minutes, but you're still a ways away from the actual highest point. And we saw a number of people just kind of lying on the ground, Stella Point, saying, nope, good enough. This is the summit for me. I'm not going any farther. So the actual stats are, of the roughly 100 people a day that try to do it, about 50 make it to the actual summit. Various people give up for altitude sickness reasons, or they get sick, or they get tired. A lot of people give up right at Stella Point because you've pushed and pushed and pushed to make it to what you think is the summit, and then you let it all out, and your guide says, no, we still got another hour, and you say, nope, no, we don't. So I was happy that everyone in our group, we sat down, definitely took a breather. Some people contemplated, I don't know, do we want to make this? But we all decided as a group, yeah, we can do this. Let's keep pushing. So here we are starting to hike, and it's just beautiful up there. I mean, you can see the clouds. We were never walking in snow. At certain times of the year, you'll be walking in snow, but we were always walking in dirt and rock. It kind of reminded me of like pictures of the surface of the moon or of Mars. So there we are as a group. At times, some people would go ahead, some people would fall back, but when it came time to the summit, we all summited together, which was a real kind of nice touching moment. We were all kind of in this together, and we all walked up right beside each other. I'm just 10 feet to the right here, just taking this photo. And there's Igor and Olga trucking along. We're starting to get close to the summit. Where is the actual summit? The difference between where we're standing right here and the summit is only a couple feet, but you do want to make it to the actual true summit. And there is a sign there, of course, with people wanting to get their pictures taken. So there I am standing at the summit. I'm wearing every layer of clothing that I own. It's not actually that cold. It was probably only a few degrees below freezing, but because the air is so thin, because there we are at 19,341 feet or 5,895 meters, because the air is so thin, your body really feels the coldness a lot differently. So it definitely felt very, very cold, and that's why I had all my layers on. Technically, a thermometer would say that it was probably only about 10 degrees below freezing, but it felt really cold up there. So then we start to hike back down, and the down hike, as I said before, is a different direction than the uphill hikes. So it's nice. You don't have to worry about, passing people. And walking up, you want to walk on something that's solid. Walking down, that really kills your knees. So wouldn't it be nice if we could find a downhill that was nice and soft? And that is basically what we found. You can see this. It's all nice and squishy. Sorry, I shouldn't say what we found. This is the designated downhill route. Beautiful views as you're going down. Quite dusty though. But there, you can see my feet. Every single step. It's almost like I'm skiing. Every step is sinking right in, and it's nice and soft. If I had to do this on the same route we took up, I mean, man, that would really hurt the knees. You'd just be banging your knees the whole way down. So then, I don't know if the audio is going to work on this, but basically what this is the local guys. They're singing us a song in Swahili. And I think the lyrics to it are basically congratulations, congratulations, something like that. So I'm gonna turn up the volume. Hopefully you can maybe hear this. So hopefully that came in. So to recap that day, it was Barafoo, up about 5 or 6 hours, take some photos for an hour. Down, we probably got down at about 2 o'clock, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So already we're pushing about a 12-hour day, and then we make our way all the way back down to Mweka Hut. So it was about a 15 or 16-hour day after only having about 2 hours of sleep after hiking for 5 days. I mean, yeah, you're definitely starting to get tired at this point for sure. So we had a good night's sleep in Mweka Hut, and then the next day, our porters, they just take off because, you know, if they make it to the camp before us, that's fine. They still just have to wait for us. Whereas on the last day, once they make it to the parking lot, they get their paycheck and they go home. So these guys are just booking it out here. They want to get home absolutely as fast as they can and take a few days off and then do it again. I mean, some guys, they'll take a week off. They'll do it again. They'll take 2 days off. Various different people take different amounts of time. It's one of Tanzania's highest paying jobs, and as far as danger goes, I mean it's pretty straightforward. Yes, there are issues with altitude sickness and people overworking themselves, but yeah, it's actually a really great job for the locals. I did see a couple bridges. You know, I walked past this one, and you know my guide said to me, he said, "So Grant, you know, you're a bridge inspector. Do an inspection here." I said, "Well, you should clean the foliage off the bridge because that's leading to advanced deterioration because all this moss, it'll eat away at the wood and it'll eat away at the concrete. For safety, you should have a mid-height railing in here, and you've got 2 planks you should probably replace." And he said, "Oh yeah, how much do I owe you for that?" And I said, $2,000, please. Next. So there's the next bridge that we saw as well. Yeah, there weren't too many bridges to look at, so I don't think Parsons will be sending me here to be inspecting these bridges anytime soon. So that's the final hike, Mweka, down to the Mweka Gate. So we make it back into town, we shower, we shave, and then it's time to be tourists. So we go to a local trinket place, and I bought a little bongo drum, and these guys were playing traditional African music, and I said to them, "Can I join you?" And they said, "Sure." So yeah, they were playing their music, and then I just started playing some bongos along to it. And so there we are. I don't know if they were impressed that I could play along, or if they were saying, like, I think this guy was impressed. He seems to be smiling. This guy over here, I don't think he wants much of it. So I don't know. I played for a few minutes, and then I moved on. So we went to a local Maasai indigenous people's native village, and they gave us a welcoming dance. So the men are on this side, and the women are on this side. And again, I'm not sure if this song will come through here. I'll just hit play. So they do this local song for us, and then as is the custom, they say that the youngest male in the group, which is me, I was the youngest male in our tour group, has to then demonstrate his manliness by showing how high he can jump. And if you can jump higher than the person that they put forward, then you know you're the bigger man. So I'm like, all right, well I gotta show these guys up here. So I jumped as high as so they give you a jumping stick, and I jumped as high as I possibly could. And, you know, I said, oh, I won. Am I going to win a prize here? Well, no, it's king of the ring. It's king of the hill. So because I jumped higher than this guy, the next guy comes on. And then the next guy comes on. And I have to just keep jumping and jumping and jumping. So I am completely out of breath. You know, we're still at a pretty high elevation here as well. And eventually, obviously, I can't jump forever. And then eventually they're jumping higher than me. And then they all start laughing at me because I'm not a big man because I can't jump. So anyways, that was the little joke that they do. They live in these mud huts. They're made out of mud and cow dung, and they smell like mud and cow dung. And they have no windows. And if we look inside them, here's one bed. Here's another bed. Here's where they put the fire for cooking, with no windows, so you can see all the soot and all the smoke that accumulates. it's basically like smoking a pack of cigarettes. I mean, Westerners smoke cigarettes. These people cook inside their huts. So, their life expectancy, in all honesty, it's into the 90s. The Maasai people, they have a diet of pretty much cow blood, cow, and that's about it. They don't eat a lot of. One of the people in our tour group said, "Well, how do you get your vitamin C? Where's your fruits and vegetables?" And the guy said, like, we've been living this way for thousands of years. We've obviously adapted to not needing, the so-called triangle healthy diet. And they don't have heart disease, they don't have cancer, they don't have obesity, and they all live to be in their 80s and 90s. So, living in these huts, they figured it out. Speaking of that, when the British and the Spanish and the Portuguese and various different settlers came to Africa, the elders of the Maasai people decided that, we should probably learn their language because we don't want there to be conflicts. We come in peace. Hopefully they're just here to do their thing. It probably makes sense if we learn how to speak English or French or German or Spanish or Portuguese. And they've been doing that for literally hundreds of years. So everyone in the village is bilingual, trilingual, quadlingual. They all speak multiple languages. They send their kids off to Moshi or to Arusha to go to school from basically grade 1 all the way up to grade 12. And then some of them even go off to university. Some of them get engineering degrees. Some of them become carpenters, doctors, lawyers. Some of them, they have cell phones and a Gmail address, and they go on trips. I mean, some of them become extremely westernized, but then they're given an option: do you want to move back to the village? And the majority of them say, I want to move back to this, because it's what they know, it's their family, it's their friends, and there's no depression, there's no suicide, there's, like I said, there's no heart disease, there's no cancer. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you get water, you move your cows around, you bring your cows back, you go to sleep, and you just do that. There's not this concept of 7 days a week. You just do that every day. And despite the fact that many of these guys speak 4 or 5 languages, and they've literally traveled all around Africa. Some of them have traveled to Europe, and they've been to New York, and they've been to Vegas, and they know the world. They want to live here. This is what they want. So it was kind of an interesting experience to see that they see what the Western world's like, and they choose to live here. It was kind of a refreshing point of view to see things that way. Here they are making a fire. I've always wanted to see this in real life, how to actually use a stick to make a fire. Because I've tried this, and I can't get it to work. So the trick is you need 4 things. You need a stick. You need another stick with a kind of made hole in it, so this stays put. You need a little piece of leather. That's key, because as I fast forward here, you see the one stick is creating ash that's falling into the leather, and then you pick up that leather, and that's nice and hot. But then the 4th piece is that you put that ash into like a softball or a baseball size piece of dry grass, and then you keep blowing on it, and it's getting more and more smoky, and there you go, full flame. So that right there took about 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So I've tried this before, but I've obviously never been able to do it because I wasn't doing that 4-step process. The one stick, the flat stick, the leather, and then the piece of straw. I wanted to look like a local, so I bought a Tanzania football jersey. Our driver started laughing at me, and I said, "Why are you laughing at me?" And he said, "Tanzania is the worst football team in all of Africa. They never win anything ever, and you'll never see anyone wearing one of those jerseys." So yeah, I don't know if I'll wear this anymore. Maybe I'll wear this around town. No one will know the difference, right? So then we go on our safari, and basically the vehicles all look like this. The tops open up, so you can take better photos, you can get a better view, and it's just nice to stand, so you don't have to You don't have to be sitting all day long. So you can stand up, you can sit down. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So everyone gets a window seat. Wouldn't it be terrible if you paid all this money to go on a safari and you're stuck in a middle seat? So every single person in the vehicle gets a window seat. There's an aisle down the middle, and you can stand up. Our guide encouraged us to wear flip-flops, so we could just take our flip-flops off and we could stand on our seat and get a really good view looking outside. And even this front opens up too. So if you sit in the front, you can also stand up. So the first animal we saw is this little guy. This would be a relative of a deer. This is called a dik-dik, D-I-Q, D-I-Q. And to show you just how big this animal is, or should I say how small this animal is, there's a human. And there's a human standing a fair distance away. So you can imagine once he walks closer, this thing is about a foot tall, and that's a full-grown dik-dik. They're these tiny miniature deer that just roam all over the place. So lots of monkeys, more monkeys, more monkeys, more monkeys. We saw probably 1,000 monkeys. There were just monkeys everywhere. Beautiful colored birds. I mean, just colors that you never see in North America. Birds would land on our Jeep. Pelican. I'll be honest, I thought ostriches were only in Australia. So we definitely saw, I think we saw about 6 of them when we were there. This is a relative of the turkey. Elephants just coming right out of the woods. Elephants and zebra. This picture kind of demonstrates, you know, when you're in Banff or Jasper or Yellowstone or Lake Louise or Yosemite, you'll drive and you'll see a moose, and you'll drive another hour and you'll see a deer, and you'll drive another hour and you'll see a goat. I thought that's what it was going to be like in Serengeti National Park. No, I mean, look, we see 1, 2, 3, 4. Like there's 10 zebra right there. There's an elephant right there. If I turn the camera, there would be a lion over here. If I turn the camera again, there'd be some wildebeest. There was just animals everywhere. It almost seemed fake. There was just so many animals everywhere. More elephants. The elephants, they walk right up to the vehicle. You know, they stand right in front of the vehicle. Here's a mother and some baby elephants running through the mud. Fun fact, they don't drink through their trunks. They snort water up, and then they blow water back into their mouth. So it's kind of a snort-shoot method that they use. On our last day, we were staying in a lodge that was in the park, and there was no fence between our cabins and the main building and the dining building and the pool. So our guide said, don't worry, only one person was killed by a lion, and that was like 2 years ago. And it's like, that's not very good odds here. But so here we are at the pool, and there's 7 elephants that are kind of looking over at the pool saying, wow, that water looks pretty good. And there's nothing separating us. I mean, there's a little railing here, but there's an opening in the railing just to the left. So a game warden came over, and in order to scare them, to make a loud noise, you can see he's got an AK-47 on his back. And basically what he did is he shot up into the air a full automatic AK, and that, of course, makes a really loud noise, and that scared them away. Here's a warthog. Here's some wildebeest. No, sorry, warthog and, I think those might be wildebeest. This is called a bushbuck. This one's an antelope. It might be a gazelle. I'm not the great. I should have looked this up before, but I'm not the greatest at remembering all these animals' names. That was a hyena. It's just zebra. We saw thousands of zebras. Zebras everywhere. The first zebra we saw was standing alone, and everyone's like, whoa, stop, we have to take a picture. And our guide said to us, you guys are going to be sick of zebras. There are just zebras everywhere. There's a jackal. So the guides, this is a shot from inside the vehicle. The guides are all talking to each other on the walkie-talkies, and they're saying, you know, there's a lion over there, there's an elephant over there. Well, there was a spotting of a black rhino, and the black rhino, there's only 7 of them left in the whole park. And so here we are driving the fastest we've ever driven on the bumpiest road I've ever driven on, and we're just flying along the road. And that's me trying to, it doesn't really show up in the camera, but you can see these things of dust, which are all these other vehicles that are just flying across the Serengeti, trying to all find this elusive black rhino. Our guide, I believe he said he's never seen one. I think he's been here for like 20 years, and they're just so elusive to find. And bam, we finally found a black rhino. And so here's water buffalo, here's zebra, and it's just perfect. I mean, the rhino was standing there. He didn't move. Perfectly 90 degrees to my camera. It was just awesome. So yeah, those are, I think I took 100 photos there, but we don't need to scroll through all of them. But yeah, just to see a black rhino is extremely rare. This little guy, better picture, is here. These are mongoose, kind of like a relative of the raccoon, I guess. We saw a cheetah. I was really happy. I wanted to see a cheetah. We only saw one, just chilling under a tree. Giraffe, more giraffes. Fun fact about giraffes, their left two legs move, and then their right two legs move, which is unlike a horse or a zebra or a dog or a cat or any other animal. So watch the way they walk. It's a kind of a weird, see, right two legs, left two legs. I'll do it again. Left two legs, right two legs. The only animal on the planet that walks that way. We saw some hippos. Fun fact about hippos, hippos are the #1 killers of humans in Serengeti National Park. It's because no one's afraid of them. You see a lion and you run. You see all these other animals and you're terrified. Hippo, you think, oh, cute little hippo, and you know, it's only in water that's a few feet deep, and people wade out to it, and then the hippo kills them. So just a fun fact, this animal is a very deadly animal. Don't ever try to take a selfie with a hippo. Monitor lizard that we saw on the side of the road. We had perfect weather. If it was hotter, a lot of these animals would be in hiding. Because it was nice and cool, a lot of them came out. And then finally we see a lion. So there's a male lion. You know, I mean, if it wanted to, it could just jump right up there. It walks right beside the vehicle. And lions don't care. They just sleep wherever they want to sleep. They just sit right down in the middle of the road. We have to wait for them, basically. There's a lion up in the tree. You got it doing a big yawn. So I don't have like a super zoom on my camera. This lion is right. It's right there. And at this point, it starts to come down. And some of the people in our vehicle said, is it going to jump on our roof? And our guide said, that's only ever happened once. So it was coming right down, right in front of us. A couple more lines. Here was a bridge. A lion was just sleeping, so we just had to wait. And there's my final lion picture. So that kind of summarizes my hike, and that summarizes my safari. I see I did get I got two email questions here. So yeah, these are both questions related to the hike. Question 1, how did you train for the hike? I would say the normal way, but you know, what does that mean? So I try to run 5 kilometers once a week, maybe twice a week. And a really good way of training is also putting on your heavy backpack, loading it up with textbooks, so loading it up with some sort of weight, somewhere between 30 and 50 pounds, depending on what level of training you want to do, and then going for a 2, 3, 4, 5-hour hike and doing that quite often. It's really impossible to overtrain. So you definitely need to be training for it. I would say 1, 2, or 3 days a week you need to be putting in for a number of months, kind of in advance. That's basically how I train for it. And then the other question I got here was, what was the total length of the hike? The total length, I think it's 50 miles from gate to gate, basically. And I tell people 6 days up, 2 days down, but that 6th day where you go up and down, it's basically 7 days in total, 6 of which are going up. 2 of which are going down, but 6 and 1 overlap each other. So it's 6 to 7 days, depending on how you look at it. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and happy Friday. See you Monday.